GoLocal columnist Bob Whitcomb is around the
Hello,
corner.
Kate. How are
Thanks
you?
for coming
Nice
in today.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Nice.
Watching the flooding rains.
Watching the rains, but we just had an interview with the Weather Channel's Alex Wallace, and says with the temps dropping, the snow could be starting actually soon, and we could be actually getting some significant snowfall.
I was hoping for 2 or 3 inches thick of freezing rain.
I know. I think everyone was really praying for
effect.
rain.
When the sun hits it the next day, it's just glorious.
We'll see what happens.
There's a famous poem by Robert Frost called Birches, about boys swinging on birches with the ice falling off and all that stuff. So, I mean, the possibility, and also the arcing of the, the electric lines as they're broken. It's very, very beautiful. It casts this sort of orange glow and everything. And
well, I don't think people would like to see arcing power lines, especially after the last storm that we had.
Just wild. I was down in, I drove down Little Compton the other day, and all the trees down. It was like after a hurricane. And yet, the trees were not in full leaf. So it's amazing.
So, I mean, I know people were out for days. I mean, there were really high winds.
Yeah.
But, I mean, should we really be concerned about our infrastructure?
We certainly should. There probably in certain places more of these wires should be underground. There's no doubt about that. In certain places, it'll have to be a very long, gradual process. It's very expensive to bury power lines. But in most of Europe and most of Japan, they're buried.
They are
indeed.
Much
of China, they're buried. So we have a real problem as it seems to be becoming stormier. We've had 3 storms in New England, southern New England, since the kind of that tropical thing back in October. We've had hurricane force gust. So that's
it was windy last storm. We're keeping an eye on this one, and obviously we just chatted about infrastructure. I'm going to segue in here to one of my previous guests, Matt Brown, the former Rhode Island Secretary of State, said today. Met him a few times. So looking to run as an independent, and he was talking about his platform, and one of his issue areas is renewable energy. Do you think this will resonate with voters' energy?
Well, no, I think it's very difficult to press renewable energy per se. I think you need something like surging oil prices or gas prices to really get people engaged in that. The other thing is you've got to get across the fact that energy from, say, the sun, solar energy, hydro, and so on, the price is falling. The batteries are getting better, so you have power overnight. Storage batteries are getting better. There's been major technological improvements in this, but I don't think the public knows about that. But I think just saying, renewable energy, I think a lot of people just go into a coma.
Well, he did. I asked him about that because a lot of folks who have opposition to wind and say, oh, it's expensive, he came back with the same thing. The price is dropping.
The price is dropping dramatically. The turbines are better, and, getting back to solar, which bears at least as much promise. Even in New England, I think, there are parts of New England where it's cloudy a lot, sometimes here, but actually most of southern New England has quite a bit of sunlight. We've got a lot more than Germany and some northern European countries that have a lot of solar. So a lot of it just the improvements in the technology, in the cells, the solar cells, and then crucially the batteries, the ability to store this
It's the ability to store, which Deepwater Wind is well on the way to doing.
Right.
Others are as well.
Getting much, much better on that stuff. So I think I probably, if I were Matt Brown, I wouldn't use the phrase renewable energy too much because it sounds kind of technical and, I don't know, elitist.
Well, he's running as an independent, seemingly to the left of Governor Raimondo. And one of the issues he brought up is opposition to Wall Street's stranglehold on the states. He proposed a state bank a la North Dakota.
North Dakota, which is a Republican state, too. I don't know if you mentioned that. Very Republican state.
But it goes back a few years.
It goes back, I think, at least to the Depression, maybe to the 20s. It worked very, very well. Actually, I sort of favor that. I wouldn't mind having a state bank. But I think we have to remember that states don't have that much control over, these national financial services operations.
Well, that was one of his
federal rights.
Federal, yes. And let's talk a little bit about the Paw Sox. I said, people are going to be asking you. It's the hot button issue. He said, look, if we're going to be investing, we want to see some of the profits.
Well, I think there's a strong argument to be made if you want to invest in this, that the state should own the stadium, for one thing. Maybe they do. If I've forgotten that, who will actually own the stadium itself? I think I forgot. I think maybe they would.
Yeah.
The state should own the stadium. It should be multi-use.
But talk about profits. I mean, can you really get your hands in their pockets?
And the problem with the whole Paw Sox thing is you don't know where baseball is going to be in 10, 20, 30 years.
We've discussed this multiple times.
Many times to the point of, again, coma-inducing. So it still looks like a dubious investment.
So let's talk about now what the gubernatorial field looks like. The GOP side's shaping up with Fung and Morgan and looking at Giovanni Ferrosi entering the race.
Trillo is a sort of Trump nut.
But Trillo, as an independent, was discussed as potentially being that wedge, that sort of Healy-esque wedge to allow, if Raimondo emerges from the primary, a path to victory. But if you got Matt Brown cobbling together some percentage votes, and you got Joe Trillo cobbling together, has the race just gotten a little more interesting?
Oh, much more interesting. Matt's a good speaker. He's a very good speaker. He's engaging. He's had some interesting life experiences. He's working on nuclear disarmament stuff, and that's, of course, all out the window now. Now that we're back in the Cold War. He was one of these people who's working to improve, I guess you could say, improve Russian-U.S. relations, and that's pretty much gone. He's a very articulate guy, quite charming. It'll be interesting to see how many people remember him, among other things. He was sort of a boy wonder. He was running city here in Providence. Then he was Secretary of State. Then he probably made the political error of running against Sheldon Whitehouse for the Senate in the primary, and that was a sort of a disaster. And then Matt sort of disappeared for a while. He went to Washington. And then quietly he moved back to Providence a few years ago. So this is, Scott Fitzgerald had a great line. They say, there are no second acts in American lives, which is not true.
There are plenty of second acts.
That's right.
Let's go from local politics to national politics, because I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about Sam Nunberg.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. You and I were talking about it in the green room. I was unusually watching cable television on Monday evening and Monday afternoon in a hotel room near the Queensboro Bridge in Manhattan, and I was actually had a lot of admiration for him. And he was a man who was visibly drunk and sort of proud of it. And it had to be one of the more bizarre interviews I've seen in a long time. This Erin, what's her name?
Erin Burnett.
Yeah, very smart, very smart. So she's sort of leaning over like that. I mean, just the body language of this stuff.
Do I smell alcohol on your breath?
Yeah, and he wasn't slurring his words, but his face had that vaguely slippery quality that people who've had a few pops have. And then he, as you know, blurted out, maybe they have something on Trump, which I'm sure you remember. So I think he could be a fascinating loose cannon, partly because he knows Roger Stone, who's a total crook, and a slimy New York operator going way back, big supporter of Trump. Now, of course,
and now we brought Julian Assange into the equation.
That's right. Julian Assange who's working for Vladimir Putin. I mean, WikiLeaks is now basically part of the Kremlin. So I think if Nunberg, maybe Mueller could just give him a few drinks, they could shake a martini shaker. Okay, here we'll keep filling until you tell us.
Well, it's probably been the most interesting part of the Mueller investigation to date.
I spoke with the cast of characters.
I spoke with Jennifer Lawless on Tuesday, as I usually do down in American. She says Sam Nunberg is now her favorite former Trump staffer after Scaramucci. It's just after the mooch. I mean, no one had any idea. We talked, and she said, most DC players knew who this person was, but seemingly out of left field.
I knew nothing about it.
Yes.
What
Look, who was Sam Nunberg?
I mean, I'm back in the Truman administration and that stuff. I knew all about Roger Stone, though, of which he is since he's announced he's going to cooperate.
Well, one of the things that Jennifer brought up was the fact that Mueller, having tied in Roger Stone, tying in Manafort. Yeah. I mean, we don't know if Mueller's working in a true linear fashion, but she said it's giving people pause as to how far along maybe he really is, if he's still sort of combing through those sort of early days, or is he?
I think he's probably a little further along than we might have thought. He's so, he's just his face. It's the great Stone face. Marine, Vietnam Marine, FBI guy, straight back rectitude. I think they're pretty close to stuff, and I think the president is in peril.
We'll see what happens down in D.C., but let's talk, D.C., Rhode Island. Let's talk about something that took place yesterday up at the Rhode Island State House.
The gun stuff.
Gun stuff. I was up there, and it was for legislation both on the House and Senate side, guns in schools, automatic rifles, red flag legislation, bump stocks. The Second Amendment Coalition flooded the building. Right. So, you saw our coverage about this yesterday.
The NRA crowd is one of the most organized, rigorously run lobbies in American history. They're relentless, And of course, there's a wide area in Rhode Island, interior Rhode Island, with a lot of NRA people. It's basically the map of the 2016 presidential election of Rhode Island. The inland towns, West Greenwich, Exeter, Coventry, and there are a lot of gun people out there. It's like rural Maine or something, you know.
So everyone showed up at the State House. There was legislation. I mean, do you expect anything to happen? You see polls, you see numbers. Certain polls say majority of Rhode Islanders are, putting restrictions on automatic rifles. Right. Do you foresee the state
majority of the United States, majority of Americans?
Do you think Rhode Island's going to take any action?
I think marginal. Mattiello kind of likes these people, and some of them support him. I think marginal. I think the Democrats are whistling in the dark until the main thing, they've got to change the Congress. The French have an expression, what do you need? A changement de regime. And so all this rhetoric is going nowhere until they take Congress, and then something will happen. Rhode Island is, it's got this bifurcated quality with sort of the richer coastal places are liberal, and these little towns in the interior of the hills are conservative. I think the Democrats would have to take a even bigger majority, which would be about 100% majority of the General Assembly to do anything major. The other thing I think we've got to keep remembering, it's like financial services, regulation stuff, like a lot of this stuff has to be done nationally. I can go buy a gun someplace and cross into another state. There's a real limit to how much you can
do at the state level.
I know in Connecticut they passed a tough law, which seems to have had some overall effect on gun deaths, even though the Newtown, the horror in the school in Newtown happened, but the overall rate of gun deaths fell after they tightened up gun regs. And I think some similar stuff has happened in Massachusetts, but still, it's all, what do they say, fungible, move stuff around.
We'll see what happens here in Rhode Island. So I put you through your paces with local news, but you've got your cheat sheet for the weekend.
I wanted to talk about the cameras briefly.
How can we not talk about
the cameras are all up in arms about it, even though there are signs, and people are speeding. I'm kind of with Judge Caprio on that. I think these things are great, and if it brings in more revenue to the city, which then fends off the next property tax increase I'll have to pay, maybe they're good.
Your family's $95.
Yeah, $95. Save lives and bring in more money, and maybe reduce the chance of another property tax increase.
So the speed camera candidate.
I think it's great. I think in certain poor neighborhoods, they should have probably done more outreach. There are a lot of the neighborhoods that are complaining about this. A lot of people don't speak English very well. They aren't as kind of clued into what was going on, even though the judge did note the city did make an effort to get the word out. These laws, by the way, have been in effect forever. Everyone ignores them, And with texting and with other forms of driver distraction, this is a more and more serious problem. Traffic deaths are going up, by the way.
Yes, they are.
Pedestrians hit, and for crashes between cars and people driving into telephone poles and so on. A lot of this is just distracted driving.
Distracted driving, impaired driving, one of the things GoLocal has is the ripple effect. We have the DOT in about impaired driving.
Yeah, you guys have done good stuff.
It hasn't gone away. It continues to persist. So you're going to talk about the cameras. You've also got some other items here.
The tariff thing, I think it's crazy. Why would we penalize our allies? Europe, Japan, Canada, Mexico. These tariffs would not hurt China hardly at all. If you actually break down the world market for steel and aluminum, it's not going to.
Well,
it would hit our allies.
Do you think that there's any potential for it to move through Congress?
I think limited.
But
wait a minute, limited for a law. But you see, the trouble is that previous Congresses have given the president a lot of regulatory authority. So some of this stuff he can do on his own by executive action. So that's he's speaking to his base. He loves to get in front of a rally with people he knows support him, just sort of like a dictator, and he gets tremendous emotional sustenance out of pleasing his base.
Does it take a little eye off the storm, if you will? Off the stormy?
Off the storm. Yeah, the stormy. Good old stormy. Yeah, right. That's going to be quite a show too.
It continues to be quite a show.
This is all almost beyond belief. It's like Marvel comic books or something like that.
So what else are we ready about?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a neat little story about Greenfield, Massachusetts, a little town out in the western part of the state. trying to deal with Amazon coming in. This town famously, this is the national press, kept out big box stores like Walmart and Target or Target, of course. And successfully, but now it's all, now Amazon's coming in. They can't keep out Amazon. And so the stores are dying, the little locally owned stores. And civic engagement is under stress in little towns like Greenfield.
So you're going to be running by Greenfield?
Yeah, Greenfield. Wait a minute, and yet there's more. Oh, wait, there's more. Something about plastic replacements. Plastics, plastic bags and something made from petrochemicals. They kill a lot of wildlife. They've got poisons where they're now finding a lot of good replacements for plastic, such as the old-fashioned cellulose, but also local story, seaweed. Seaweed's going to be used more for packaging in the future. And this is great for New England. This is a terrific place to grow seaweed. You can eat it, you can package it, you can wear it, everything.
Well, we are flush with it. It would be a great asset to have if we were to do something with that.
Very, very happy about that. One other thing, local thing. Durfee, which is the main high school in Fall River, they're going to do a replacement of the big high school there for $80 million, something like that. And I thought, well, that's a lot of money. But then I read about a $500 million private house in Bel Air in West LA. And this says something about the way American society works. For one rich person, $500 million for this job, monstrosity. And then
I have seen it. It's not.
Yeah.
I would not want to live there.
No, it's not great. It's very nice.
Well, as always, the Sunday read from Bob Whitcomb is a must-read, so we look forward to reading it this weekend.
Okay.
Look forward to having you in next week.
Ciao,
Bob
everybody.
Whitcomb. Okay,
Happy
be careful
weekend.
out there. It is a little wet and wild out here in Providence, outside of the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center here. We did Skype in with the Weather Channel's Alex Wallace during the 3 o'clock hour again. He's keeping an eye on that line, expecting some snowfall even in Providence and parts over here because of the temperature drop. Keep an eye on weather on GoLocal moving forward, but as he said, the potential for the most precipitation is a little after the commute time, so be careful if you're out there. Take care on the roads. We appreciate your watching. We appreciate your tuning in. 3 o'clock again was The Taste with Rick Simone, talking about St. Patty's Day fun. He had Murphy's in, he had McBride's, and we talked about the St. Patrick's Day parade in Newport, of course. 4 o'clock was full with Matt Brown, former Secretary of State, here eyeing a run for governor as an independent. Coach Nate Lehman with the Providence College men's ice hockey team, number 3 seed in Hockey East's quarterfinals. Series starts on Friday on campus at PC. Kids are on spring break, so he's encouraging hockey fans across the state to tune in for some great hockey. It'll be on NBC Sports, but also he wants folks to turn out for that game. And of course, Bob Whitcomb, as he does now, coming in every Wednesday. We appreciate his time. Tomorrow on Thursday, we'll be on our new GoLocal schedule up at the State House at 3 p.m. Molly O'Brien here at 4. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center and up at the State House. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.